All right. So welcome everyone. This Zoom is a little bit of a different one than usual. I thought that instead of talking about being a buyer or a seller, it might be good to talk about being us, being the real estate agents. Rude. Yes, I did attend Harvard. Thank you very much. Class of 1996. And no, I can't remember names. So I'm replying to things in the chat here. So I do get a lot of questions about what it's like to be a real estate agent, and especially because our team is just, one of the things I think that is part of why we're growing so much and why we've been able to work with so many clients is because I hope that we're not everybody's, what some people think about real estate agents, which by the way, I think is not true largely, but I think as a field, our field is not particularly well regarded, shall we say. So and a lot of what we talk about as a team is how we do things differently, how we do things to help our clients in a way that we think makes sense, how we think it makes sense to handle the transactions in a way that we think makes sense. And we're just always looking for ways to improve all of that. And yeah, that is just part of our process. So I'm Megan Brenn-White. I am the head of the Upstate Real Estate Team and a licensed real estate agent with Keller Williams Realty, Hudson Valley North. So there you go. Now you know my full handle legal stuff. And we have some other people on the team here. And actually for once, I'm gonna get a little bit more into detail about our team, because I think it'll help if we do 5 minutes of context here. I think you'll be able to understand also how we work differently. And I will say that I was a solo agent here for, I guess I've been doing this for about 4.5 years. And I was a solo agent for maybe the first 2 years, and then kind of worked with, another person or had an assistant. But it wasn't really until I moved to Keller Williams, actually, which is very, very, very supportive of teams. And basically Gary Keller, actually, let me grab a book. So this book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which I think is not like a great title, but this book is mostly about how you build a real estate team. It's just like a blueprint for how to do that. I knew when I started this that I didn't want to work as a solo agent forever. And we can talk about that too, because I think a lot of what's really bad about real estate, or what could be really tough as a career, is about being a solo agent. It's really like, that is a huge part of it. So since I'm no longer a solo agent, Jen Brown, how many people do we have working for our team? Can you tell me? I always say like 13, but I actually don't know. 12. Do you know? 12?
12.
Okay, great. So it's 12 people.
Soon to be 13. Soon to be 13.
Okay, so soon to be 13 people on our team. And it's roughly half and half for us, people who are licensed agents and people who are not, who are in more administrative or staff roles. Although some, Lazy Brown, are licensed agents who are also in a staff role. So I think that's one thing that's really important to know, is that the way that we work, the traditional transaction, is really broken down across a number of different people. So we're a team, but we're also like a mini team for each transaction. And that is a lot of what makes this industry pretty bearable and a lot more fun than it would be as a solo agent, for sure. So that means I'm just going to introduce you to a couple of the people here on the screen, because I think it helps. And then also, if you want to reach out to them, our email addresses are always our first names at upstate-realestate.com. And if there's someone who says something here that you want to reach out to, like, you can probably find them on my Instagram feed. We have a website coming someday soon. And but we're all really busy, but we try and be as open as possible. And I know that we're, would want to share that information. Like if you're like, oh, tell me more about your role, or what's that like? So Lacey is the first person I see on my left. So Lacey Brown, who I always want to call Downtown Lacey Brown, is our lead listing coordinator. Correct? Great. So Lacey is a licensed agent, but her role right now is basically, she's the hub of all of the things uptown Oh, she is Uptown Kingston, Uptown Lacey Brown. I like that. So she's kind of like the person that holds together our listings to a large extent. So she works with Danny Romero, who's just like, whatever, I'm on the phone, I'm doing business here on this Zoom call, can't stop, won't stop. And she like, basically we get the lead for a listing. We get the lead for a listing. It comes in, and then Lacey's the one along with Kay, who I think is also here somewhere. I feel like I saw Kay, but maybe not on video. That's okay. So Kay is the transaction coordinator for the listing side. She's a full-time person who just helps, particularly from contract to close, but they get all the information from the sellers, like where's the well? When was the last time you had the septic pumped? Do you have any rental income? If so, how much? All of the paperwork, schedules the photographer, gets the listings on multiple MLS systems often, helps make sure that the signs go up, that our beautiful upstate real estate doormats go up, all that. And then, kind of rinse and repeat so that the idea, a huge thing, scheduling. Because when we put up a listing, we often will get lots and lots and lots and lots of calls from agents and from buyers who want to see the listing. So Lacey is in charge of our like little cheat sheet, the listing summary that's in the background. That's like, everybody should know this. Here are answers to frequently asked questions. This cheat sheet just grows and grows as we get more and more questions. So she also works with Allie, who's a full-time person on our team, who helps with the scheduling and helps with all this stuff. So that is kind of like the listing team. And actually, I'm just going to pin Danny here for a second, because Danny's the only other person here on the listing side. And Danny was an agent in the city. He lives in Kerhonkson and still has an apartment in Bushwick. And so basically what that means is Danny can focus on meeting with the leads, like the listing leads that come in, on talking to them about strategy. Sometimes we go to those meetings together, thinking about the pricing, thinking about how we're going to position the house, who we think would be interested in it, how we're going to do kind of special digital marketing, or what other agents are we going to reach out to about the house. Also giving advice on, oh, hey, if you do this and this and this, you'll probably get this much more money. Angelica, who's coming on also on the buyer's agent side, Angelica is starting to work with developers and people who want to flip houses on the listing side, because she has a lot of renovation experience as well. So that Angelica and I went yesterday to 2 different listings where the homes were basically shells, and 2 different developers essentially were like, what should we do to really make these awesome? Which we love, because we'd rather hear that early. So, okay, that is the listing side. And then we have the buyers. So I'm pinning you guys. Angelica, Karina, Ms. Monica. Okay, so on the listing side and buyer side, we have Monica, Angelica, and Billy are the buyer's agents. Monica's the lead buyer agent. And Karina is not yet licensed, but is going to be one of our first showing assistants. So we have 2 other showing assistants who are joining our team soon. But the idea is that on the buyer side, these guys work with John, who's a full-time transaction coordinator, and they can focus as much as possible just on looking for, well, not even just looking for amazing houses. First, doing a consultation with our clients, really like understanding what they want and trying to like not poke holes in it. That's not the right way to put it. But like if somebody says, oh, I want like a huge Victorian, but I want a house that's easy to upkeep, that's where we could go, so which of these priorities are more important to you? So helping the buyers set and then refine their criteria based on what they're showing, finding them awesome houses, putting in sick ass offers. Every agent on our team had an accepted offer this week, all in multiple offer situations. So that's pretty cool. And then negotiating post-inspection, and then dealing with any problems that come up during the whole contract process. But John, who's the transaction coordinator on the buyer side, basically he does a lot of what it, for me, was hard as a solo agent. He calls and makes sure he calls the listing agent, the other side. He calls the attorneys, the banks, everybody, and is like, hey, is the appraisal ordered? Hey, is title ordered? Hey, did you fix that thing you said you were going to fix? Hey, like, when do we have a closing date? And our team uses Slack. And with Slack, we keep up to date on everything. So any of us can look at any moment, and we know that John or Kay will have given us updates on our individual deals, and will let us know right away if there's anything at all that we need to jump in on. So Karina's role is going to be interesting, the showing assistant, because Karina's got her own fancy business to work on, although she's managed to set it up in a way where she can take some time away from that. But Karina can focus on the extremely super fun part of this, which is essentially searching for houses, showing them, and then basically giving the agent feedback. So then the agent and the showing assistant together would do the initial consultation. The showing assistant eventually would do the searches with the help of the agent, eventually at some point, just all by themselves, and then come back to the agent when you're ready for negotiations. And that's a way that, like, because we cover such a huge area, we cover, 7, 8 counties. And it's really, so that's, one of the things about being a real estate agent up here is we cover a humongous area. And we have to, because there are just not that many houses. And because most of the buyers that we work with really are like open to living a bunch of different places. So just being like, we're not going anywhere is kind of a non-starter. So, okay, so I introduced those guys, and we'll, I'll remove the pins for now. Remove. And then for the other rest, so then we also have Marcy Langworthy here, who I'm not going to pin, but she's up at the top, and Jen Brown. And Marcy's in charge of our app, which you can download at Upstate Curious. We're finally like getting to, if you go to the Apple Store or the Android, whatever app store is, it's called, just look for Upstate Curious. We are about to get to the public launch. We just finished the soft launch and some tweaks, still tweaking it. So Marcy's the community manager, works also with Buddy, who's in client services. And then Jen Brown is our chief of staff, who kind of, herds the cats basically, and a lot of other very important things. So I think that context is really important, because for me, what was hard about being a real estate agent is, well, and still is hard, is, and this is a question I got a couple of times. It's very hard. Yeah. So it's not a 9-to-5 job. What are the typical hours and days? So that's a big part of it, is that it's very hard to be ever 100% off unless you really plan for it. And the way our team works, we should, and we have been able to do that. So I think that like, it's not a 9-to-5 job. And it's a job where you can really easily get sucked in, because especially if it's fun and our clients are fun and you're seeing beautiful things and you're exploring beautiful areas. And then there's just like, the thrill of the hunt and competition. And there's all these things that are kind of addicting about it in like good and bad ways. But our team goal, like the goal that we put in front of ourselves, is like to try and not work more than 35 hours a week. So that is a goal. That is like a pin that we've put in the, out there so that we remember it. It's not something I think most of us are 100% fulfilling it. Let me put it that way. But also, oh, there's Rex. Hi, Rexy. It's also something that, having it divided among so many people, that's one of the things that gives us a shot at this, right? So let's say like Angelica wanted to had Rex's birthday party on a Sunday, but there are clients who wanted to see houses on Sunday. No problem. She works with Karina as a showing assistant. Karina can show those houses to her client, and then she can get on the phone, negotiate. She could even go see the house if the client thinks it's important for her to see it before putting in an offer. So all of this stuff we try and work super smart and avoid as many problems as possible so that we aren't getting those calls at like 9 a.m. with people freaking out. We try and be super proactive in terms of emailing clients and texting them and calling them and being like, hey, I checked with your bank today. There's still no update. Hey, I checked with your attorney today. Nothing new, but then people know that it's not like we're not checking. There just isn't an update. But I would say the time thing is probably the hardest thing. All agents, and so this relates to the time, is that agents are always on commission. That's how like legally it has to work. Oh, well, I think that's legally how it has to work. I mean, I know there are some states that do it a little bit differently, but for us and everybody I know in New York, all agents are basically on commission, and our staff members are, have regular contracts, either freelance or a lot of people are actually full-time employees. So we are, like I said, the Upstate Real Estate Team is part of Keller Williams Hudson Valley North. That's our brokerage, but as a team, we kind of work like our own company in a lot of ways. So the problem with working on commission, or the opportunity, is that it's really hard to say no to things because you're saying no to potential income in addition to everything else. And it tends to be, I'm just going to say this, I think it's true. It tends to be that people who are good at this job are also kind of people pleasers. And so it's also hard to say no, to like, if someone's like, this is the house for me, it's my dream house, it's the one, are you sure you can't go at 7 a.m. on Saturday? And you're like, okay, I can go. So it's like, it's a combination of things. It's like being sort of a people pleaser and being a hustler and being like, a hustler, like a bad term, but like being someone who wants to get stuff done and loves that thrill of the hunt on the listing or selling side. Like Danny went all day yesterday on the listing side even, and was like taking photos and doing a floor plan and doing all these things just because we thought it was important for this listing that we're putting up, which is a 2-family that's a little bit more complicated. So we are, as a group, a little bit more type A than probably some normal people, and more than a lot of real estate agents too. So I think that not everybody wants to join a team. And I just saw your message, Lauren, about I think it is the best thing to join a team. I mean, teams are very new up here. There aren't that many, so that's one of the things. I don't know too much about how the other ones work. I know how we work, and we have very pretty rigorous and specific training stuff. And we, have like goals that we set for certain time periods, and like you shadow somebody else for a certain number of time, and then you get shadowed, and then you get feedback. And it's sort of, we were meeting every day. Now we're down to 3 days a week, but then we have as a group and talk about things and talk about the market and talk about what we're learning. And we also, then I'll kind of do like different educational things. We listen to podcasts. So read books, whatever, go on like Facebook Live things, Keller Williams has a family reunion this week, which is a big conference for Keller Williams. And it's, there's just all of these agents sharing information. So I think that one of the hardest things is, this gets to the best advice for a newbie. I think one of the hardest things is to arrange your schedule. I mean, that sounds pretty basic, and it's something that I think most of us are still working on, but so that you can be, you can get stuff done, but then you also manage to take time off, and you manage to sort of not totally blur everything so that you have no actual personal life. So I think that for me, having the morning meeting at 8:30, or having a morning meeting at 8:30 with our team, has been incredibly helpful, because I think I start the day, and I kind of like get to see everybody. I get like reconnected with people on our team, and then I can kind of hit the ground running. I think as a solo agent for me, it's still it was hard That was hard because I wouldn't like, nobody cares what you do, basically. It's true on our team too, by the way. I mean, not that we don't care what people do, but like, but everybody sets their own goals. So if somebody's like, I want to like, this is my, financial goal and this is what it means to me, I don't care. You know what I mean? If someone wants to make half of like a certain amount of money and they can work 10 hours a week, I don't care. I literally don't care. God bless it. That's amazing. But, I think that it's hard because I know for me, one of the things that's a little challenging is like if I have a free afternoon where I don't have meetings or specific appointments, then it's a little bit tempting in the work from home, style to be like, oh, I'm going to like watch a half an hour of a show and then like 3 hours go away. And it's like, it sounds kind of awesome, but it's like, it's not, because it's not necessarily, it's like not me taking my dog on a hike for 3 hours, which would be like healthy and rejuvenating. It's just sort of like the brain is on firing at a million miles a minute, or it's like off watching Kim's Convenience right now, by the way, which is so cute and so happy making. What I can say is that one of the toughest things about starting out as an agent, and one of the toughest things in general, is that you don't get paid for a little bit. So you have to like, you have to kind of just know that and budget for it. Because on average here, it takes from accepted offer to closing, it takes about 3 months. So like, let's say you're just like unbelievably lucky and your first day of getting a license, you take somebody out, you get an accepted offer, it's still 3 months until you get a paycheck. So I think that one of the things that was, I mean, the opposite. One of the things that was like a relief for me and felt like a relief was when I had a reliable pipeline of business, essentially. When I knew that stuff was, I had enough stuff pending that I was like going to be fine. And that's when I started to grow the team more too. Like because let's say you do a deal on your first day and you don't get another deal for 5 weeks. So all of a sudden, it's 3 months plus 5 weeks later is your next commission check. And that's, living on commissions is very different. I will say that, for all of the buyers agents on our team, and I hope you guys don't mind me saying this, but I think it's relevant, is like everybody has 6-figure goals for their actual income per year, and they're all going to hit it, I believe. And they have, the ones who are here. So that was one of the things that was really different. When I moved up here and I was going to be a solo agent, I thought, if I could my goal is to make around $60,000, because that would be like comfortable for like me and my husband to be able to live up here, which is still a really good salary for up here, by the way. So that's the other thing, like just, I recognize that. And it was a lot less than I was making when I lived in New York City, but I was like, that's my goal. And I mean, now we do that amount of business in like a month, not even a month, I don't think. My math isn't so good, but it's a lot. So, one of the things that I think, one of the things that we do as a team, and this is kind of important, I mean, this is like important anyways as a person, right? Like, is to really try and figure out what people want and why they want it. Like, to kind of be like we just added something to all of our individual like trackers and goal things. That's like, what's the personal goal that's motivating you to earn this money? Because we're all motivated by wanting to do an awesome job for our clients, by loving this area, by being curious and loving to learn. Like those are actually table stakes for this team. And by wanting to get really good at our jobs and also to build this team up and have the team be amazing, that's literally just like table stakes. So the question though is like, when it comes to the money, how will that impact your life? And so we've been kind of challenging ourselves to be like, okay, if you earned this much, what would it mean for you? Or what's a goal that you have that is related to how much money you can earn for commissions? And that really helped, because I think that was, that it's useful in a number of ways. It's useful, like this is like super annoying sometimes. It just is like, you're taking on everybody's emotions. And it's one of the things that's really awesome about it. And one of the things that's really hard about it is that, like, especially when you get to the point where you're like closing soon, everybody gets upset. I think not everybody, but like 40% of people start to like go a little loopy because like nobody can believe that no one can tell them when you're going to close. That just seems impossible. But it's true. It's just the attorney and the bank that we're waiting for. So it's like, how do you handle people being mad at you for something you can't control? That's sort of like one of the kind of questions. And then when you've had that person yelling at you about something that has nothing to do with you, then sometimes it's helpful to be like, oh, but if this is done, this is this much commission, and then this gets me this much closer to owning my first home or owning an investment property or going on a great vacation or whatever it is that motivates you, or being able to give back more to the community and invest in things. So each of us individually had to really think about that. And for most people, by the way, I think if you just look at being a real estate agent as having your own business right from the get-go, that's my first best advice. Solo agent or not, just look at it like having your own business. And most people who start small businesses don't actually start them full time. They usually start them on the side, and then they kind of keep working two things until they have enough, until the business has grown enough to be able to do the other one. That's how it works. Like I've seen statistics about this, and that was true for me too. Like I had a marketing business. I didn't quit my full-time job until my marketing business had enough clients. I didn't quit my marketing business until real estate had enough clients. So is that another annoying thing? Sure. Was it hard to be like, I'm going to write a paper, like a slide deck on how this German university should market themselves, and then go and like look for houses with barns in Accord? Yeah, it was like weird. My brain didn't always work right away, but it was fine and it was necessary. So I think that's it, is like, I think that this business takes a fair amount of, I don't know how to put it. It's sort of like it takes grit and self-compassion to be able to keep doing it. So it's like you can't just have the grit, because I think then you can kind of burn out. So I think that that's the problem. If you're just like, oh, it's just one more week of this, it's just one more week of it. It's like, it's not stop. This doesn't stop. And in this market, like seriously, I know you're probably like, F you guys are doing great. The real estate market's booming, but like find a real estate agent and just hug them, because it has been so stressful in the past year. Like, and yes, we've done like amazing business. And yes, I'm totally grateful for it. I'm grateful to have worked with all the clients that we have and to have a job and to have a growing team, all of it. I love it. And it has been so stressful. And right now in this buyer's market, everyone's like, oh, it's so easy for you guys. It's like, no, on the listing side, easier than it would be. On the buyer side, it is a bloodbath. We used to be able to take people out with a sensible budget. And that's actually something that's really hard. We used to take people out. They would say, the budget was $350. That used to be pretty standard top of a budget. And we could find people things. We could find people 5 or 6 things to see on a weekend. Even before COVID, it started to get more expensive and more competitive. Afterwards, I mean, now it's hard, like, and I think I think having, and maybe saying a people pleaser isn't as good as saying if you're good at this, you probably are someone with a lot of empathy and the ability to connect with people. So that means when something goes wrong for them, it's really hard. So, like Danny and I, like, we love to call this up. I mean, whatever. I don't know if he loves it with me, but I always like horn in on the calls when he calls the sellers to talk about all the offers that come in, because it's really fun. Like you get like such a high from that. Like it's so amazing because you're changing their lives. And it really sucks to be like, oh, your deal just fell through because of a million potential reasons. It's the same thing for buyers. They fall in love with the house and you just like feel so much excitement for them and anxiety kind of, and then if they don't get it in a multiple offer situation, which can absolutely happen multiple times before someone gets a home right now, it's hard. Like you see them fall in love and they don't get the thing they want. And I know that's fine. I know that this just ends up, as I always say, being part of the story of finding a house up here. So I think if you look at it as a business, It maybe does one more thing that's kind of interesting, which is that it gives you a little bit of distance from it. So it's sort of like when you're looking at it and you lose a multiple offer situation, or a deal falls through on the listing side, or something bad happens, someone fires us, whatever, you can look at it and go, huh, is there something different we could have done here? Is there anything different we could have done with our process, with how I communicated to the clients, with how we communicated to anybody? Is there something different I could have done here? And then it becomes just like a learning opportunity instead of like this depressing thing that like then you go on to the next thing. So I think that that's the other thing that like so now also we track everything. So we can be like, great, roughly 40% of our offers are getting accepted right now, which is depressingly low considering our team kicks ass at crafting great offers in multiple offer situations. But ultimately, sometimes it just comes down to how much money it is. We can put in all other bells and whistles, but now we know that. So it's like, okay, great. How many houses do I have to show somebody to put in a certain number of offers? How many offers do I have to submit to get accepted offers? How many of those will go to contract? So we're tracking all that stuff now. And I think that it like makes it feel more neutral. That's what I would say. It's less like I'm just getting on a treadmill and like active, 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 and I don't know why, and I don't know what's going to happen. Like we can actually have a pretty good sense of what will happen. And I think that, let me look at some of the questions I got before. I know, so, I mean, this is kind of a very basic one, but I did my initial course at New York Real Estate Institute, NYREI. I'll just write it here. And if you type that plus Groupon, they always have Groupons. And I don't think it, oh, cool. I don't think it, I mean, I liked it. I thought they were great, but also I don't think it matters that much where you do your course. The field's a relatively low barrier to entry kind of thing. It just is. Like, we're not training to be neurosurgeons. Like the actual skills that you have to be a great real estate agent are unbelievably complicated. I mean, I think that's true. You have to have amazing people skills. You have to have like, you have to be able to like understand all kind of things about the physical properties of homes, like what it is, what's wrong with it, what could it be. You have to understand about locations and what happens if different political things happen and change in the area. Like, will Airbnb be banned here? What would that mean for house prices? Is the new like Kingston like universal basic income thing, will that impact anything? You're constantly like looking at all that stuff and then getting better and better and better and better at like working with people, I think. But, and this is one of the things that's not so great for a new agent, I think, is the test is not like that hard. You know what I mean? You only have to get 70% right. So like, I don't know, it's just not that hard. So once you take the test and you go out there and you're an agent, like you don't know any of that other stuff. So that's the other thing is like, I feel like that's why you have to be at a brokerage for 2 years, by the way, because the brokerage is responsible for like making sure that you've done your continuing education, you've done all kinds of things. But truthfully, brand new newborn baby agents, in my opinion, should not necessarily be out like on their own with clients because there's so much to know. And so that's why like on our team, we have like, it's like 3 months at least of being full-time before you really work with a client on your own. I mean, some people could do it quicker if they're experienced or if they're just like super good at stuff, but it's like, it's a while. And then we talk to each other all the time with questions about transactions. And Keller has a full-time director of compliance, and there's a team leader in our office. There's a CEO for our group. These are all people that were like, this is a weird situation. What would you do? There's a full-time legal counsel. So maybe that's the other thing I wanted to say here too, is that like, I think I thought like the real estate agent was like, you just were like your own thing, you could just like float around the world and do your own thing, doing your thing. But in reality, you were like one piece of a big network of people for every transaction. And in a small area, those people are going to come up again and again and again. So those relationships become really important. So somebody asked in the on the Instagram stories, is a big part of the job chasing down leads or cold calling people who might want to sell? And that is an interesting question because I am actually, in spite of doing these Zooms and whatever else, I'm actually pretty shy. I'm like one of those weird introverted, extroverted people. Like I think I would die if I had to cold call somebody. Like the idea makes me like literally want to stop breathing. So I would be like, okay, great. Like I'm just going to be like a bricklayer or like anything else to not have to do that. So that's why, like, for us, one of the really important things is like, how do we as a team never have to cold call anybody, never have to do like those basic like lead generation things and still build a thriving business? Hence Instagram, hence our app, hence the fact that I'm going to be interviewed on on Swiss TV next week. Probably won't bring a lot of leads, but is kind of awesome and funny. But yeah, like a normal agent, like you have two options. You do, I can't remember what it's called, office time? Office time, I guess. So you like sit in the office and you get leads for the time that you're sitting in the office, or floor time, I guess. You get leads that are assigned to you, or that, if somebody calls, you pick up the phone and you answer if you're at a brokerage, or you have to pay Zillow to be a premier agent and get leads from there. So you're essentially like the person who, when they see a house, somebody sees a house and they click on contact an agent, it contacts like 4 people, and then you frantically call as quickly as possible. Or you can't cold call right now anyways because of COVID. There's a like a hiatus on that for the moment. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that a lot of what normal agents do is generating leads, like 50% of their job, probably. It's not insubstantial. And that's real. So, I mean, it's also like talking to your sphere of influence, your friends and family and stuff. And that's where, like, for me, I think it's been one of the most fun things about doing it up here and building a team is that like everything I do is technically related to that, sort of, even if it's just fun. So I can go to a restaurant and have a nice chat with like the restaurant owner, or I could go to a shop, or I can meet somebody for coffee. And like, I'm just building a network of people that I know here, but that's what you're supposed to do for real estate. I will say that's the one thing that's a little bit like hard is that, I mean, has been a little bit hard for me that was surprising, is the thing that's kind of weird about it. Somebody wrote, do you feel like you're always working? And that's the part where that's actually more than the hours for me. That's the part that's still kind of disturbing, is that if I see something beautiful, my inclination is to photograph it and put it on Instagram. If I'm meeting someone, there's some part of my mind that's like, oh, this is great. I'm so glad I got to meet this person because like more people in my network, like there's that part of my business mind that I can't totally turn off. And that turns everything kind of into a potential business opportunity because everybody's buying and selling houses or knows other people who are buying and selling in houses. And if you look at all the real estate books, they're like, talk to everyone, talk to your family, like mention at Thanksgiving dinner, like when you're at the doctor, like hand them your business card. So it's like, in that way, you're kind of supposed to have like no boundaries, in terms of who you could do business with or not. And that's the one thing that I feel like is always a little bit like annoying, where I could kind of like, I wish I could kind of turn my brain off. Maybe it's a little bit like if you were a journalist or a writer or like, I don't know, something like that, where you were like, everything became a potential story. Like your brain's kind of like that part of your professional brain is just kind of like out there thinking about things through that lens. But yeah, I mean, the actual work. So I'm training Lee now, who's she's coming on as a buyer's agent. And so I'm back to working with buyers a little bit. I haven't done that for a while. Like the actual work is like, I don't know, it's fun in a ton of ways. Like we all like looking for houses. Like we don't, we wouldn't do this if we didn't. And we like finding hidden gems, and we like, looking at new areas people aren't looking in. So that part is fun. Showing houses I freaking love because it's super fun. You're walking around and you're just like, our clients are seriously the coolest people ever. And this I don't know if it's like, again, like I don't know if this is like a standard thing, because it's different. If we were buying leads from Zillow, our clients would have no connection to us. They would have just called us and been like, oh, real estate agent, you slam ball, which I feel like is how a lot of people think of real estate agents. Whereas people contact us mostly because of Instagram, or they know us, that's their sphere of influence. You know, they've met us through referral. So when they come to us, they like really want to partner with us in selling their homes or buying their homes. And because we work with cool people, they refer cool people. And like, I've literally been like dying laughing at most of the appointments, or like wanting to well up with tears because something is so awesome, or like, I don't know, it's a really, I love that experience. Like, I just love it. And then on the listing side, it's super fun also because you're like talking to somebody about their home and what they did. And, you know, it's a big financial decision, and really trying to like get your brain to work with like, what could we do to maximize this for this person? That's who our fiduciary duty is to, you know, and then thinking about the next step, which is like, someone's going to see what we write and they're going to buy this house or this story that we've created around the house. They're going to buy it, and it's going to be super important to them. And I love that. And our sellers will be able to go on to whatever they're doing next. I love that part of it. So yeah, I mean, like, talking to the attorneys and stuff is not always like, you know, attorneys, banks, mortgage, like the stuff that we can't do. The contract to close stuff is like less fun, hence our transaction coordinators. Which, by the way, for them, I think it's at least pretty fun because they're super, super, super good at it, and they're way better than I would be because they just like know all the time what's happening and can politely ask 12 million times the same question. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of the questions I've sort of answered, but does anybody on the team have anything, or does anybody have any like other burning questions, or do you have anybody from our team have anything you want to say where you feel like it's a different experience for you? Or I don't know, Danny, do you want to say like something about what it's like to do it in the city versus here? Because I know we have at least one person who has that.
Hi.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I didn't think it would be that different, but it's worlds apart. There's a lot more that we have to take into consideration with each listing here, and throughout the process, throughout the deal, from accepted offer to close, that never even comes up. I mean, the most annoying thing about doing real estate in the city is you might have to do a co-op board package, which is, I love. It's just a bunch of paperwork, and I just like sit there and fill it all out, and I feel really good about it. But you know, there's no septic system, there ain't no well, there's no bacteria in your water, there's no mold, there's like nothing to worry about. It's like, here's a condo building. It looks great. The condo's in great shape. No one does inspections unless they're buying like a townhouse or a building. So there's never going to be anything coming up at inspection. There's a lot of that problem solving that we do because there's constantly like fires that need to be put out. It's a lot less in the city. But then the city real estate also has a lot of challenges as well. And also, I personally don't love apartment buildings. Like I could never get excited about a condo. It wasn't going to happen. I could not get excited about anything that looked like I was living in a hotel. And so here, you know, we get to, and they all look the same, frankly. New developments in New York City are, every single one of them looks exactly this. There's nothing exciting. Up here, there's just so much more to get excited about because every property is different. Every piece of land is different. Every home is different. I mean, there's, you know, the area, the town, there's so many other things to get excited about that it makes it all worthwhile, even though it's, you know, it's a little bit extra, the amount of work that goes.
It's a little bit extra. Somebody just asked us about if we can talk about our marketing plan or strategies. Is that for Sarah? Would that be for our individual listings or for our team as a whole, like to get leads? Both. I mean, Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about how, like, I mean, even when the consult, how we're trying to figure out like who the right people for the house are and how each, like how we need to talk to each of them kind of, I think that like, I think that's a big part of it is like just that initial, like who the heck would want this house? And, and what do we need to tell each of those audiences, good or bad?
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, especially when we're looking at something that seems like it might be a little bit more of a fixer-upper, right? So this is not going to be the real sexy marketing plan here with like awesome, like amazing photos of a sexy space. It's going to blow up Instagram. But we have to think about, we have to sort of see, I mean, I think we're really good at sort of seeing beyond what's just there. So we immediately can think of a million people who with a very little amount of effort can turn something into something amazing. Even sometimes it's just a matter of like furnishings, really, with some of these homes. And so like we start thinking about like, is that the person for this? Is this going to appeal to an investor? Is this going to appeal to a family? Is this for a couple? Is this for a single person? Is this for somebody who wants to have a lot of friends over? Is this for somebody who wants to entertain or look at all this land, like all of your friends can like pitch tents out here. Like, I mean, people do all kinds of stuff out here. I know we sold a piece of land that had a little shack on it, and my immediate thought was like, somebody might buy this, glamp out in that shack until they figure out what to do with the land. And that's exactly the person who bought it. So we think about all of those scenarios when we're initially seeing a property, and then we sort of like weave that into the story, into the listing description, into the way we present it online, the way Megan presents it on Instagram. We sort of like weave that in there, and it just like it hits because that person sees it and goes like, oh yeah, that's what I was looking for. I want that piece of land with that little cabin because I'm gonna like camp out in that thing. I mean, I did that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what I think one of the interesting things is that we can be like, okay, there could be the person who wants to live in the little thing while they're building a place. There could be the person who only wants to use it for tents. What would they need? There could be there could be the person who buys this house because it's at the top of their budget and they could only do maybe really basic renovations. And there's somebody else who might buy it, who we think could buy it, add a pool and $400,000 and have $1 million house. So I think the other thing that we do that I think we probably underestimate is we think about all the bad things. So we think about each of those scenarios and what would prevent somebody from buying or enjoying that property. And then we just like tackle it. So we're like, okay, a luxury buyer might love this house, but it doesn't have a pool. Great. Like sellers ain't putting in a pool, but we can get a quote for a pool, or like this house would be amazing from work for home, but doesn't have broadband internet. So what do we do? Like, well, let's not, like if we mention work from home, let's make sure to mention that like there's no internet or it's satellite or it's slow or whatever it is. I think that's a big part of it. Like saying like, and I think that's something that we talk about a lot is like, not just what are the good things, but what are going to be the hurdles for somebody. Because it's just about finding the right person, right? So it's like if somebody really wants it to be quiet and wants there to be no noise, we can't just be like, no noise. Because they're going to like see it and hear noise. So we actually want nobody to come to any of our properties unless it could be a really good fit for them. And I think that once we've all, I think that probably you and I talk about that stuff like a lot. And like we each do that individually in our own brains naturally. So that by the time we even get to like the photos, we're already telling the photographer, this is true. This isn't even conscious really. We're telling the photographer, hey, Phil, take a photo of how close the house is to the street. Make sure to show that because we want people to know that. Like, or hey, Phil, make sure to show that like it's also on an amazing creek. Like that, both the good and the bad things. So I think that's really true. And we don't do renovations. Oh God, I wish we could. Like someday we should have a branch of our business that does that. But we do have suggestions for buyers all the time when they ask us, when they don't ask us. If we just see them post something on Instagram and we want to like make their house better. We do. We have suggestions for buyers and sellers all the time. That's something that's pretty we see a lot of freaking houses and we hear about a lot of really awesome things. So I mean, actually, maybe maybe Angelica, do you want to come up here a little bit? Because you actually really do a lot of suggestions for buyers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, literally every house I go to, the buyers are like, what could I do here? What could I do here? And so kind of, I mean, I'm always like, paint everything white. And then it gives you a blank canvas, so then you can really see what you're working for. A lot of the houses up here are dark or have wood paneling, and it's really hard for people who aren't super visual to actually visualize the potential. So yeah, I'm often walking around telling people where they should or could remove walls, whether or not something is probably load bearing and then therefore would be more expensive, like how they can make bigger windows and stuff. A lot of it is like people want more ceiling height, they want more light, and they want more kind of open floor plans. And that's really kind of, I think, the major stuff that we're usually looking at improving in a lot of these like older homes up here.
And I think that that's like important to say that like this is why, the buying side of the team and the listing side of the team talks a lot, because like we need to know like what's getting to be important to the buyers and what's, because it's, I mean, I would say, Danny, what Angelica just said would be the same advice to 99% of our sellers is like paint it white, make it brighter, make it a little bit more blank slatey.
The question that follows that all the time is like, well, what kind of white?
Yeah, we just be like,
I'm like Benjamin Moore super white. Like I have like my 4 colors and I just like
I have my 4 whites too.
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is that I'll tell you, one of the things that's also super interesting. I mean, this field is so, I think this job is so interesting, but one of the things is also seeing how people react to things because when people are, real estate is such an emotional process. And so you get into all kind of weird stuff that's so interesting, I think. So it's like being on a reality TV show all the time. Any clients who are, listening to this, like I don't see you as reality TV characters, but kind of. Anyways, it's very interesting to be involved in your lives because when someone is buying a home, that's going to be a really big reflection of them, right? Especially now with social media. So like when they're looking at one of our listings or like one of the buyer's agents is showing them a home that they might want to buy, that's something that they're going to like, that's going to reflect them. And they're going to show to their friends and family and bring people up and stuff. And they're going to either go like, oh man, you like bought like a dumb home, or like, oh my God, I'm super jealous of your awesome house. And everybody wants the latter, even if they don't admit that necessarily. And then you get into the other fun issue of people often are buying together as 2 people, and they may not have the same exact opinions on things, budget or style or location. And so you get like all kinds of like soul searching about like, what does it mean as a couple? I mean, the soul searching already as one person. What does it mean for me? What does paying this much mean for me? What does like buying a home in this area mean for me? What does it mean about me? And so it's like, it's super interesting. And I think because all of us, we talk about this so much and we've seen so many houses, we can see how you can make most houses look pretty damn cool. That's the truth. Like there are some that are going to be like 90s homes where everything's like a hollow core door with like brass hardware. Like those are tough. But
those are really fun challenges.
See, look at Angelica. See, I'm like,
well, look at my Instagram and look at the before and after of my living room.
Oh yeah, that's fair point. Fair point. So, I mean, I think that like, and I think that that's what, I guess that's what I would say also is that I think that if you guys are working with an agent who's not us or is us, I think that one of the best pieces of advice I would give to people is to trust us, to the clients, just like trust us, like, until we've like messed up. If we mess something up, then we're humans and whatever. But like, there's nothing, I mean, I don't know about other real estate agents, but I think this is generally true in the industry. Like we're actually trying to help you. Like it doesn't help us to have you be unhappy at any stage of this. Then we are constantly showing people homes that are way below their budget. So we're not like, oh, I get another $500 commission if I jack their price up by a ton. The commissions are a small percentage of the overall price of the house. Also, it's not like, oh, I'm going to recommend this inspector because they're going to be shitty. And like, they have like some special deal with me, like, or this attorney, like, that's not how stuff works. Like licensed inspectors don't give a shit if they blow up a deal for us. Like the way that we choose inspectors is based on like, can they talk to the clients in a normal way? Are they super thorough? Like, will they give the reports in a reasonable amount of time? Like, can they answer questions in a reasonable way? Or are they going to stand there and like freak out and scream, which I've seen. But it's not like, oh, that dude's, yeah, let's get that inspection done. It's just like, I think people think that real estate agents are like kind of, I don't know, that there's like some secret agenda that we have, but I don't think we do. I mean, I don't know what it would be. Like, we assume that a big percentage of our deals are going to fall apart. So even if your deal falls apart, we're not like, screw you, I hate you. Like, or we're not trying to hold together something that shouldn't be held together. It's just like the times that I will push and maybe clients will get mad at me about will be because I think they're going to walk away from a really good opportunity for something that I think is easily fixable. And that's where I want to be like, please God, like, just listen to me, this problem. And we see that, I would say, on the buy and sell side, we see that all the time. People falling in love with a house, not wanting to, like, bidding just under where they should to be able to get it. People on the listing side, when we're looking at offers, doing the same thing, walking away from a deal because they're like, oh, this is like, whatever, this chimney is crooked and it's going to cost $5,000 to fix. And that means the whole house is bullshit. It's like, no. If you love the house, everything just has a price. That's it. Every problem just has a price to fix it or to change it. There are very few houses you have to walk all the way away from. And even then you might be like, great, is this land enough? Is it literally worth enough? Like, is this price okay for the land minus the entire demolition of this house? Even that's an acceptable option sometimes. But usually we're dealing with things that are way smaller. And when people's emotions get involved and they start like, well, even worse than that. This wasn't like what it's like to be a real estate agent. Now I'm like, what's like to be a good client? But like when people are like, oh, my like, great uncle did a ton of real estate in Arizona in the 50s. And he always said, and you're like, yo, dude, that's like not relevant here. That's just not relevant. Like, I'm glad, like, much respect to your great uncle who did the real estate in Arizona in the 50s, but like that is not related to our question about the septic system here in Sullivan County or whatever. So I think that's one of the things that's kind of, that's hard for me because I think that, I don't know, I feel like I go into this with really good intentions. I know everybody in our team does. And every once in a while, again, our clients are mostly awesome. We'll get people who just don't kind of trust us, or they see us like not as working with them, but kind of working against them. And that's one of the worst feelings for me, actually. And it's just like, I'm literally trying to help you. I'm not doing anything weird or anything at all. Like I'm trying to keep this together so that you end up with the result that you want, whether it's buying a house or selling a house. So yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously you want to get like up here, you want to get a car you're okay with driving around on. Thank you. Because we drive around a lot. But I think otherwise it's pretty, I mean, it's kind of what it looks like. Like, I don't think our Instagram glosses over what we do. I think it's pretty fun. Like, it might even like gloss under, because we don't have like video showing us like with our listing clients, like having hilarious conversations, or with the buyer showing them houses and like watching them fall in love and putting together the offer. Like it's pretty awesome, actually. So I don't know.
Exciting.
What'd you say?
It's very exciting.
You know what? It's exciting, and you're always learning, always. And that I've heard from everybody in this team.
Every buyer or seller is different, and you approach every transaction from a unique perspective, and a lot of things have to do with not even necessarily the house, but like the person's interests. So like, what do you really like to do? Because maybe you can only afford a very small house, but you actually just are going to be outside all the time because you like gardening and hiking and canoeing, and you're never really going to be in your house. So, up here, we end up finding people houses a lot that fit their interests more so than maybe like their idea of having a 4-bedroom house.
I think that's a big part of what we think about, you know, on both sides of the team is like, when we're thinking about who would be into this. So it's like, if we have a listing like we just did, we have one in Gardner. So it's like, okay, that could be for climbers, right? It could potentially be because there's Mohawk Preserve is right there. It could be for Airbnb rentals potentially because of all the climbing, but Gardner is going to have like Airbnb regulations. So maybe not that one. It could be for people who want to be in a certain school district. It could be this. And it is so much about your interests and kind of your lifestyle. That's why it is fun, I think, because it's all these like existential questions. And on the buyer side, you're seeing people kind of work through that. And on the listing side, you're sort of imagining people working through it. And that's really, I don't know, it's pretty awesome. So anyways, that's it. I'm glad you guys all joined us, and we'll see you next week. And everybody should be a real estate agent by then. So let us know.